almost 2 weeks ago. This was such a huge story, at least for a morning. And then big tech and the Democrats said, we got to cover this thing up. A hard drive, Hunter Biden's hard drive with incriminating emails that may have shown that he was in business or Burisma was in business or at least meeting with Vice President Biden when he was vice president. All kinds of stuff in that computer. Guess what the penalty was for the New York Post? Big tech has not allowed them to tweet since they published that story. Isn't that totally crazy? Censored off of Twitter. And what is even crazier, there has been almost no outrage in the media about this. I mean, everybody wets their pants when Jim Acosta is told to stay out of the White House briefing room for a day and a half. And this is just happening. And I think it's absolutely crazy. Miranda Devine joins us. She's a columnist for the New York Post and has been all over this story from its earliest stages. Miranda, welcome back to Newsmax. How are you?
Thanks, Greg. Good to see you.
I am frustrated. I wonder if you share my frustration, if your colleagues do, about not so much, of course, that you have been shut down off of Twitter, but there isn't more, quite frankly, outrage and sympathy for what you guys are going through and what big tech has decided to do pretty arbitrarily, in my opinion.
Well, quite the opposite. I mean, the rest of the media seems to be quite happy to have the New York Post muzzled because it's not convenient for their covering up the sins of the Biden family. And so as of tomorrow, it'll be 14 days since Twitter locked our Twitter account. And for what? It wasn't as if any of the stories that we published were factually incorrect or salacious or in any way untoward. They were straight reporting of evidence that was on Hunter Biden's laptop and which since then, in the last 2 weeks, has been corroborated 1,000 times over, particularly by a man called Tony Bobulinski, who was a former business partner of Hunter Biden and who has himself turned over a trove of thousands of emails and text messages and WhatsApp messages to the FBI. And he also held a press conference, if you remember, last week before the great presidential debate, in which he outlined that Joe Biden was lying when he said that he didn't know anything about Hunter Biden's business dealings with shady companies overseas in Ukraine and China and elsewhere, and that, in fact, he was probably benefiting from it. And it's interesting that there's a poll out showing that, in fact, 54% of Americans believe that Joe Biden was involved in his son's shady deals and also might have benefited from it. So I don't know what Twitter and Facebook think they're doing by censoring because it's backfired on them.
So, yeah, it's not working. I hear things from time to time like Google, the Google searches into Hunter Biden are through the roof. They can track these things. How about you at the New York Post? Are you seeing unusually high web traffic or people going to the New York Post? You obviously don't need Twitter to access the New York Post. It would help. Are you seeing an uptick in traffic?
Absolutely. I think, look, last time I checked on that front page story, we had a 20% uptick in traffic. So, you know, we don't need Twitter and Facebook. They can throttle us and do what they like. People know the New York Post. It's one of the largest newspapers in the country. And we have been proven to be credible and authoritative just by this story. And I think the people with egg on their face are Facebook, Twitter, and really the rest of the media that has tried to downplay this story, ignore it, and for political purposes. And what is the point? I mean, half of America has already voted, 68 million people have voted. It's not as if it's a purely political story. There are problems in here for Joe Biden, and this is a man who is running to be president of the United States. And it's simply extraordinary that he's allowed to just escape through without being asked questions. And I mean, I presume it's why, he stayed in the basement almost every day, for the past 2 weeks. He's now coming out onto the campaign trail. He went to Georgia today. But again, not coming over to the media pack that is following him everywhere, just walking straight past them instead of answering any questions. He's very inaccessible to the media, unlike President Trump, who probably talks too much for his own good to the journalists.
He does talk a lot, and he doesn't get credit for that, by the way, how accessible he is. But I'll say this, actually, about Joe. I mean, he has gone to that debate, and he went on 60 Minutes, and he got away with it. Even on 60 Minutes, they did not press him on the New York Post story. They mentioned it tangentially in the vaguest, gentlest way, very last question, and he dismissed it as malarkey, and he was on the debate stage as well. And he was not challenged, other than from President Trump, but he wasn't challenged by that moderator. So they're all in on it. I don't know what would happen if he walked into a press conference, if they'd really have the guts to press him on any of this stuff. I do want to show his denial, which I think is almost, it's even more troubling to me, how he denies this story. This is what he says about the Hunter Biden laptop story in the debate last week.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this where
that's
you're
exactly
going?
what.
This is where he's going.
And Donald Trump was appropriately totally incredulous, but that was a shrewder statement on Joe Biden's part than it may have looked like. He didn't call it a Russian disinformation plot. He just said intelligence officials, former, are calling it potentially a Russian disinformation plot. And that, to me, is such a window into the swamp. Did you notice that denial? I actually find it offensive. Non-denial denial, actually. Miranda?
Well, look, it's a whole concocted plot, just like the original Russia collusion plot was, that we find out originated with Hillary Clinton as a way to cover up her own culpability for her emails. It's always projection with the Democrats. And, Joe Biden there is referencing an open letter from these 50 former intelligence operatives. And their letter was just a farrago of misinformation of its own. What they admitted was they had no evidence that there was any Russian disinformation, no evidence that the emails on Hunter Biden's laptop that we published were not genuine. None. They had zero. And yet, with their great wisdom, they're saying, it looks like a Russia disinformation plot. How irresponsible, how dishonest.
Exactly.
All those people who signed that letter have no credibility. What shame on them.
Shame on them indeed. And Miranda, that's what I mean about the whole thing being a plot, the Mueller probe, all that stuff. These are the same people who are behind that, letter. And even in that letter, there is that one kernel of truth where they say, we haven't seen the evidence. We haven't seen the emails. We haven't seen the computers. But we think this is from Russia anyway. Gosh, they outed themselves in a big way. Stand by. I think you're reporting over there at the New York Post. Still, it was historic in nature. And we'll see what happens on Tuesday. Miranda, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Greg. Good to talk to you.
Newsmax TV is now America's fastest growing cable news channel. We give you the real news you need. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Newsmax TV streams live on YouTube for free. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.